Hello everybody, panel. I stand here as the leader of opposition. On opposition, our burden is to prove why we should teach science and maths in the national language instead of English. I want to rebut on the Prime Minister's point about if you teach science and maths in English, it creates a barrier to scholarship. There are other ways that you can gain scholarship by not just learning science and maths. It could be in terms of sports, it could be in terms of how they perform, and it doesn't have to be that if you teach science and maths in a national language, it matters about their concept about the subject and whether they hold a good understanding of it, which hence gives them the scholarship because they have good understanding and good knowledge of the subject. This comes to I have three arguments to present. My first argument is that if we enforce the teaching of science and maths in English, the majority of people in the developing country wouldn't understand the content of the science and maths being taught in school. This is because they are not used to learning English. But if English is their national language, then sure, that won't be a barrier. But how about the majority of all developing countries? They don't have the opportunity to learn English, and they then resort to learning their own national language. For example, what is the percentage of people in Malaysia learning Malay and they know Malay, rather than the people who actually know English? The majority of the population in our country knows Malay than knows English. And if they don't understand the content that is being taught in school, they'll be academically unsuccessful in the future. Due to this academic confusion, which will lead to their lack of understanding in the subject, there will be gaps in the subject and will not fully understand what the teacher is actually teaching and the tools, and they won't understand the tools that are provided for them. This shows why this would lead to academic unsuccess. If we enforce science and maths should be taught in English rather than in the national language. And the impact of this would be, the stakeholders will be the student first of all. I would like to further elaborate why the student would be impacted, because if they don't have proper understanding, they wouldn't get a proper job. Sure, they could get a job by doing sports and many more. But if they want to specialize in science and maths, they won't be able to fully understand due to their lack of understanding of English. Next, I would like to correlate it to my first point. The student will struggle to learn, which will cause anxiety. What do I mean by this? There are not, like in certain developing countries, there are not enough educational tools to help them understand the information that are being taught in English. And by the country not having enough tools to help the student understand what they're teaching in English, this creates a mindset, and it creates a mental barrier for the student to learn, which causes anxiety and which hence causes not enough focus because they won't be able to understand. So they will have the lack of focus when they are trying to learn science or maths. This further explains why students and parents will take too much time struggling on maths and science just because they don't understand how to speak English or they don't have any knowledge of English. The impact on stakeholders, if we enforce science and enforce English to be implemented in science and maths educational tools would be that parents will have to step in to find ways to allow the student to understand what is being taught in school, and hence the student will, which comes with a lot of stress. Hence, the student will face a lot of challenges and language barriers that will allow them to not understand the subject. Last but not least, I would like to say that by allowing developing countries to learn languages in their own national language would mitigate an economic barrier. What do I mean by this? As we know, English educational tools such as checkpoint papers, or probably your books, the books that you buy that are written, like science and maths books that are written in English, they're normally found very pricey because of the first world language, or because of the first world countries that are producing them. So if we teach children science and maths in their own national language, we will be able, these developing countries would be able to save more money on other facilities that the country could have been spending on, such as politics, or probably about teaching professional politics, or probably even enhance their teaching system. And not only that, this creates more job opportunities for citizens in that country, because they wouldn't have to struggle to learn English in order to teach people in their own country. And they will be able to teach in the national language without any problem and without any language barriers. Hence, the stakeholder, which is the developing country, can drive their country better in different ways, as they will be able to spend their own money, spend those monies used to buy English books to be spent in other different ways. Thank you very much.